Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, the Ruler School Circuit Series now taking orders on our Q3 2024 circuit kits, and our guest lecturer members, Vite Ramen. Class is in session.
Nice.
Hey there, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will, including an online GP, to your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast. It's Office Hours, featuring myself, DMO73, and I'm joined, as always, by Paul Reisman.
What a GP.
And Mike Rance.
Hi.
The fact that Mike
Hopefully
Rance...
my internet works.
It does, and the fact that you didn't open that with like some kind of crazed rant about Martha Linnanen being in the top 8 of this event, I'm disappointed.
I put it in the chat.
Okay, there we go, for sure. Martha Lipponen in top 8. We got a banner. It was a great weekend. Good to see you all here. As we get into some housekeeping notes, just as a reminder that you can actually go check out the signups for our August 3rd and 4th Ruler School Discord circuit, where the winner of that event will take home the exclusive, this time around, Uber Champion 2 Friends and a Cat play mat. Ours is the only circuit that will have that mat, and the more people we get to sign up for it, the more likely I can convince the company to let me make all Champion mats Uberized versions. So please sign up. So you can check that out. And as always, if you want to consider supporting the channel financially, you can click that join button down below. It's the easiest way to show us that you care through financial means, so we can do cool things like go on trips to GPs or upgrade equipment and anything else that we've been able to do. But regardless, we're glad you're here, and we're going to talk about spoilers. We're going to talk about the last GP, and we're going to talk about our kind of initial thoughts of the ban list idea. We still got one more GP this format, August 17th and 18th, so not jumping too heavy-handed into it, but I've got some thoughts. Figured you guys in the chat would as well. Let's go ahead. So, let's talk about Aideen, the Fighting Doctor. Aideen, the Darkness Ruler. You have if you set your starting life total, or it says you have a starting life total of 2,500. If any other player would set their starting life totals, it's that plus 1,000 instead, which means your opponent at base starts at 5,000 or 8,000, or if Typhon was still around, they could start at whatever many cards they are plus 1,000.
Oh, Mirius starts at 8,000. Yu-Gi-Oh, baby.
Mirius starts at 8,000. Yep. If your opponent would gain life, they lose X life instead, where X is the amount of life they would gain. X cannot be higher than 500. That means if they would gain 1,000, they lose 500 instead. And prevent all non-battle damage that would be dealt to your opponent. So you can't also be throwing burn spells while playing Aideen. Keep that in mind. Solo mode, whenever you play a chant with Torrent, put a 0/1 Darkness Automaton Resonator token with banish this card, target player gains 100 life into the field, which is essentially a free extra 100 life loss or heal for yourself every single time you play one of his spells, which is neat. And Judgment for black, play this process only if your life is higher than your opponent's life. So you start at a big hurdle, but then if you can get above your opponent, you can then perform Judgment. But again, only with solo mode. And he flips over into the Hippocratic negative healing suit, which I think is so funny as a character.
One of the names of all time.
Names of all time. First strike, drain, imperishable for 8. It bumps up the anti-life gain thing to 900. Whenever you would gain life by this card's drain effect, each player gains life instead, which essentially means when he hits you, he's hitting you twice, once for gain or once for damage and once for life loss. On this side, battle damage, non-battle damage can happen. And then whenever you play a card with Torrent, each player gains X 100 life, where X is the cost of the card. And a God's Art of What Soon? You. Dying Soon. For double black, this card gains plus X 100 attack until end of turn, where X is the number of cards with Torrent you control in all public zones. This guy is going to be the most Voltron ruler of all time. because it very clearly wants to just buff himself up and then punch you in the face. We've joked about there being like some references to JoJo's in Forcible before. This guy is the most JoJo reference I've ever seen. It's just like muda 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 muda. Like it's just that. It's
No,
just that.
this is literally just Josuke. It kills you by healing you.
Yeah.
It's actually Josuke from part 4.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Two friends and a cat still works, and Electro's burn still works, seeing how they can't be prevented. Yeah, two friends would still work. Yeah, because it specifically then says damage can't be prevented until end of turn if you kill something with it.
I would say I'm a little upset with the fact that it's specifically his own drain ability and not all drain abilities, because that'd be kind of sick.
Yeah, but we have a lot of
that would be kind of lit.
We have a lot of incidental drain cards that are just going to be good with him, right? In the sense of like revealing the power of salvation is a 2,000 point life point swing for him. Like, because you just pay 1 white, target both players, you gain 1,000 and your opponent will lose 500, or it's a 1,500 point light swing for 1 at instant speed, or things like crystallization, kill a thing to hurt your opponent 5. Like, seems good, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like incidental cards that he's going to be playing. I think it's fine.
I know, it's just it'd be cooler if like the ruler actually worked with resonators on the field, not just with the ruler. I will always irk over that kind of thing.
Yeah, Paul, I did get the Hunter x Hunter reference there. It's time, you have accrued interest. Bring. Paul, what are your thoughts on AD and Hippocratic here?
He's certainly interesting. I'm hesitant, but I'm glad that we're getting something that's a little bit more unique for Black.
Nurse burn. It's just nurse burn.
Basically.
Nurse burn with a limiter, which is insane.
Yeah.
But you can only have one nurse, and she does all the burning.
And you start with it. And you start the game.
And you can't remove her. And you can't remove her technically.
Yeah. It's very interesting to me. I think it's very cool design space. Certainly hasn't been. We've had like, you know, life drain decks before in a very similar way with things like Funf was kind of the same idea essentially, with like Never Die Funf getting down below without 0 life and then casting Inferno. Like, we've had a lot of Inferno decks, whatever. This will bleed into the conversation that we're going to have later, but I would put money on the fact that Inferno is probably getting some kind of axe with this guy coming out. Like, it just feels quite plausible. Inferno's like,
well, here's I was gonna say, there's a super interesting thing that I see about this card and just reading through these effects and everything. I feel like AD is probably going to be one of the most sought after rulers to be paired up with another one, because I feel like even on his front side alone, he is incredibly interesting.
Being able to tell your opponent that they can't gain life, like, from the jump is 100% a good thing to play into. Like, people are playing Rogue Spectator to be able to stop that. And so now being able to have a ruler that is just a start the game as Rogue Spectator live is like, oh, are we going to suddenly not have to be playing Rogue Spectators in our sideboard now? Like, because we don't need to worry about that anymore? Like, you know, Rogue has kind of seen this like weird kind of like could be in sideboard, could not. Most people choose to use it because it's an extra body, but it's like getting cast less and less nowadays. And so the idea of like, oh, I can free up a sideboard slot if I just use Adine as a partner is like, oh, that's kind of nice. I imagine this also means that of all the rulers so far we'll talk about it in a minute, but they spoiled today that there is an extension rule for all of the rulers outside of Goliath that can tag them together. Adine automatically out the jump feels like the one that will be the most sideboarded. Like, he will just be in the boards, right? For these rulers to be able to tag in as needed, which is very interesting. Ironically enough, absolutely hoses Gandinia by existing. Because Cantina.
Wow! No, Cantina needed that nerf. You know?
Mean, yeah, I know. It's just like incidental. Whoops. It does. It is interestingly enough that I think he also gets hosed by Darktree, because of like how replacement effects work, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. It certainly would impact his, like, if your opponent would gain life, they lose it instead, because Dark Tree just says you cannot gain life. So under the current CR, because something cannot happen, it doesn't exist to be able to be replaced. So like Dark Tree does kind of really mess with with Hippo's kind of play idea kind of concept, which is interesting. But I am very
Hippo. Okay.
Hippo. It does make me very curious to see how his spells are going to function, if they're going to be very like J Ruler Voltron beats related, or are we going to see more of like creature token generation, or like what's going to happen, right? Because a lot of his artwork is related to the suit, which means that it's him. You want to flip him a lot, and he has imperishable, so that makes a lot of sense, right? So then it's like, well, what does his suite look like outside of that?
Card makes Moonshade feel real bad.
How? Oh yeah, because you won't ever be able to get it back. Just like
so, if I'm playing Moonshade into Aideen, it just helps him get to where he wants to be even faster.
Yeah, because he wants to be
and we do still have other Pain Stones that have come into the metagame too. So like it's a really interesting thing to think about when you're going into matches where opponents are playing Moonshades. This deck feels oddly comfortable in that environment.
Yeah. They did a great job in making the life gain like the anti-life gain one-sided. So like even though he starts at 2,500, he's going to be gaining it rather quickly. Because the other thing that's important to note is that it's the same kind of thing that Yokoshima does, where he can discount cards with Remnant even if they're being cast from hand, because they're still technically a card with Remnant. So for him, every card that he casts with Torrent, even if Torrent isn't online, he'll get a token. So he'll be generating like some life point manipulation there, which I think is important for him. And it's the same idea once he flips. Like every single card he casts is going to do something, even if it doesn't resolve, which puts it in an interesting space. And again, is kind of why I think Inferno is probably going to get the axe. Like being able to play into an Inferno line that then I don't have to actually be resolving spells to kill you seems like a really dangerous space to explore with Inferno, and I'd rather not deal with it, right? Because we already see that Inferno now is trying to shift how its play lines are to things like Secret Duel in the Moonlight. Like it doesn't want to have to resolve spells to put you in a bad spot. And so Hippocratic could do the same exact thing, set you up to be low, and then just not care about anything resolving. Just throw a million spells at you, and eventually one of these triggers is going to drain you to death. Like, and so like that's just I just don't know if I want to introduce that into the environment. Now, it could just be a combo with Aideen, right? But at this point in time, Inferno keeps cropping up and has seen tournament results. So it's like, maybe it's time for Inferno to go.
This would not be the first deck that abused Inferno, right? So like you said,
the deck that won the GP, the deck that won the GP used Inferno.
But before that, we had Sprinting Steward and Inferno, which was also a thing you could do. Shout outs to Rustin. So, I mean, I think the card is not being used as it was intended.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'd be comfortable with it going.
Yeah, for sure. So that's it for 18. Very cool. Looking forward to seeing the rest of his suite of stuff. Today, we got Hanada jumped, which was Goliath Hanada, who is an ancient Hanada. At the beginning of the game, put a card named Hanada Corpse, CEO Skyscraper from your hand into the field. If you do, banish all will coins, so you can't have your own will coin, just to keep that in mind. And then the card gains the following abilities as long as you have Build or Demolish. Build, whenever a Hanada entity enters the field, you foresee one. Demolish, non-automaton, non-Hanada J/Resonators enter the field rested. And then Judgment for 2 green and 1. Play this Judgment process only if you control a Hanada Regalia. We do not have any idea how he chooses between Build or Demolish. We don't know.
He just does.
It's probably something from the Skyscraper, and I imagine that the Skyscraper probably has some kind of text of like, untouchable barrier, cannot be banished. Like, I would imagine that this thing has every single way possible to force itself to be on the field at the beginning of the game. That's probably the case and would probably be required for Hanada to be remotely explorably playable. Like, especially if it costs more than one. If its cost is 2 or more, it's just like, this thing has to tell everyone to just go jump off a cliff in order to be able to resolve every single time, or Hanada's in big trouble. Okay. I'm being told that I'm allowed to continue, or do I need to pause? Okay. Continue to talk. I will be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure what Joe's talking about. Whether Goliath has hammer gears. I'm not. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm a little lost there.
Is there something in the art that I'm missing?
This might be a reference to something, and I know it's not a JoJo reference because I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I do like the idea though of building a tower. I really like the flavor here. Um, Also, commentary on capitalism. The deck.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else we have to say about this because I can't pivot through the stuff that Jeremy has access to.
Let's just talk about his nice fancy suit. How about that?
We could just talk about a suit.
Yeah, it's a nice suit. It's a nice cloak over the suit too. I just, I don't understand why he got the one with the sleeves if he's just not going to use them. Just get a cape, my dude. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, one of his support cards has hammer gears in the background.
Interesting. One of his
That
support cards
is
also has the funniest
interesting.
face in the world.
I do like that he's able to rock the soul patch, right? Is that a soul patch or is that just shadow? I think it is soul.
No, it's a soul
It's
patch, but
soul
it's also a little
patch.
bit of beard. But it's also a
Yeah,
little bit of beard past it, so he's got a little bit of a Abraham Lincoln kind of look to him,
very much enjoying it. Um,
Yeah.
Building or demolishing.
He's gonna emancipate your entire board.
So at this point, okay, so Joe, Shunpo, and Steven think that Hanada is excavating gears. The implications being that this is like sometime past the new world. What kind of sandwich? Welcome, Joe,
Oh,
to
Joe,
being a
welcome,
student.
Joe.
Thank you. Pick up your
Hey.
syllabus in the description and report to class. Um, yeah, he's obviously eating at his desk. He looks like he's a guy with some sophistication, and so
Yeah,
part of me,
but very particularly, he likes to do things in excess. So it's definitely gonna be pastrami, because obviously that's like high quality deli meat. And as a
Mhm.
Jew, obviously pastrami is like patron saint of all my meats. Um, Definitely gold leaf. Has to be gold leaf on it. Um, Probably a little bit of caviar, just a smidge. Nothing too crazy, but like just a little bit. Jeremy, what else is on
I
Goliath's sandwich that he's eating at his desk?
I'm gonna say spam katsu sanda.
I knew as I
Spam
was
katsu,
I knew
interesting.
as I left that when I came back it would be a sandwich conversation, and I
The
regret.
sandwich conversation only started like
I don't even care. I don't care.
20 seconds
I knew
before
it
he
was.
came
Yo,
back.
why? He asked.
I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
Also,
it's
thank you.
very important.
They
Also,
asked.
Joseph Colin, thank you for joining the channel as a member. Appreciate you, buddy, and congrats on the top 8 this weekend. That was great. Well done.
Yay!
Anyway, now we have Goliath Hanada Corp's CEO, 9/9 with precision, barrier, total cost 1 or less. This card gains the following as long as you have build or destroy or build or demolish. Hanada resonators you control gain +3/+3, or with destroy whenever an automaton entity enters the field under your control, draw a card. By the way, doesn't say once per turn. Just if you're on demolish, every single time, get a thing. Enter, search your deck for a card with Goliath in its name and for a card with Maeda in its name. Reveal them. You put the first card revealed this way into your hand and the other into the field, then shuffle your deck. The question to me becomes, can you reveal them in a choice order? Because you search for both. So can I reveal Maeda first and then Hanada? Or am I revealing the Hanada and then Maeda? Because it's all part of one search where I get to grab both. This will be interesting. We'll get that clarified. There was an old BANLIST Moonstart card that had the exact same problem way back in the day. So now we're going to have to clarify that in the Q&A document. Colin, Cologne, Stephen Jeevan. Well done.
I like Stephen Jeevan.
So Joe, I tried not to say colon because I assumed you've gotten that a lot.
I see COLON.
So I went with Cologne.
If it's Cologne, then there you go. Let me know in the chat if I've been pronouncing it
Go
wrong this whole
Colin.
time. Hanada looks fun. I need to see his support, obviously. And I need to see what automatons do. And I need to know exactly how...
Well, I know what automaton does, Jeremy. Very importantly, there is a single automaton in the game already.
Okay. Is it
One.
Zeus Alice? Is it Zeus Alice?
No. Okay, 2 automatons in the game. But there's one that already exists.
Okay.
And it's Ancient Automaton, which already comes in as a 6/6 because you're gonna have that skyscraper. Look at that.
There you go.
Combo.
We did it.
He's a brick house.
And then when you get build, it'll be a 9/9.
Whoa!
Crazy. Honestly, might see play. We'll see how his automatons work. I am curious.
2 9/9s are very strong.
In watching the video, I get a couple of vibes from Hanada. One, that he is in the video very much I'm the public face, ha ha ha, but then behind closed doors he's just an absolute terror and a menace, and we just haven't got to see that side of his personality before, which is very possible. Or it's the very classic, the ancestor is an idiot, so the descendant is an idiot, so the ancestor's actually in control through the mech that they built, kind of trope, because of that Nekomata that's in the, like, Nekomata or whatever that's in the video too, the, like, butler thing in the watch, and it's really just, like, the old Yokoshima Hanada who's the actual problem here. Very much villain vibes in general from Hanada, though. Like, you get the whole vibe. We do know for a fact that the extension rule, which we'll talk about here in a moment, excludes Hanada. Like, he is not part of the team, so it's very clearly like he's set up to be the villain of the thing. I will say, though, in one of the artworks, very clearly there is hammer gears.
Oh my god. Jeremy, if only you were here when Joe was saying that before, and Paul and I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah,
like, what are you talking about?
One of the artworks for Hanada has front and center hammer gears from Hero Cluster as one of the things, the mechs that's helping to build stuff. So it's just like, wait. Please don't have the gears influence still kind of coming out here. Arcs floating in space.
Like cars.
Can't spell cars without arc. Sure.
It's true.
I guess maybe. Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see what comes out of it. And then the only last card we've seen is let me see here. Come on.
Management board meeting
is the extension rule. We saw management board reading before. That's why we haven't talked about it. That card was already kind of spoiled when we saw, like, the idea of what Hanada was going to be doing. In the very first preview video for this set, we saw the text for that card, so it doesn't really give us too much insight. And then we just have the Battle at the Ruins, the Coalition, which just gives the heroes of this cluster the Coalition keyword and tag Coalition, right? Makes sense. Or sorry, the race Coalition and then tag Coalition. So very clearly setting themselves up to be able to do both the solo mode or not. Also, interestingly enough, this does give us a hint into who, like at this point in time, we know who all 7 rulers are in this set, because there's 6 mentioned on this card, and then the last one's Hanada, right? So we already know who the 7 rulers are, so no in terms of the characters. And this does mean that it's very likely that Bianchi and Kimihei are like very clearly designed to work in tandem, like out the jump, right? They will be probably the most like designed to be together, as opposed to some of the other rulers who will probably be more flexible in their design space.
Leader of the Skulk. Yeah.
The Skulk. Yeah, I'm excited about it. This is like exactly what I would expect this extension rule to be, with the inclusion of solo mode. It just gives you the flexibility of being able to tag. It makes me wonder what the other extension rule is. It does make me wonder if the extension rule is going to allow Hanada to tag with someone like a reworked Arc. Or something.
Where my head went.
Like, or Solaria or something, which is like, I don't really know how I feel about that. Tagging with Arc would be neat, but we'll see what comes out of it. Or hopefully the other XR is just a generic Alice cluster tag. Maybe the other XR could be for Helen. Yep, it could be to somehow involve Helen, right? We'll see how it goes. Helen needs help. The only thing that Helen needs is ruin counters. Legitimately, the only thing she needs is ruin counters. If she gets ruin counters, to be able to prevent herself from being burned to death, like in response, she currently, without resolving a single card, can kill you on turn 2. Like, she does not, for one will that does not have to resolve, she can kill you. Keep that in mind. And it's very
could be an extension rule for if you go with solo mode instead.
I would
get
think
bonus effect.
Maybe I would think that would probably be
extension rule that gives solo mode to the Grim Cluster rulers.
We went backwards. I know
we're going backwards, baby.
I know we gave them tag, but what if you played them the way they were originally designed, but better,
but more?
Sure, I guess.
Tag rulers.
Yeah, tag rune rulers is not a good idea. Lapis Cluster
20, let's go.
We do know that a second masterpiece collection is on the way, which I can only imagine is probably for Alice Cluster. I doubt they jump over to Alice Cluster, although I could see them jumping past Alice Cluster for now and doing a masterpiece for Lapis Cluster, mainly because there was already they spent some time on Regalia, so maybe they want to take a break. But I don't know. That would be. I mean, it's the next masterpiece is very clearly Alice or Lapis, one of the two, and honestly, I'd be fine with either.
I just hope I hope it's just an extension rule for every ruler that lets you start with Force of the Moving in your hand.
Stephen Jeswain is here in the chat, which, by the way, there's a clip there for that. I do want to say that it is very quite possible that Stephen will have gotten the company to clarify that Force of Will the movie is not a legally playable card. I do think that he's going to I mean, maybe they let it stay legally playable, and it's not like he cleared it with the TO for the sake of that event, right? So it's not like his deck was illegal, but making them issue a statement of okay guys, this was cute, but it was never actually intended to be played. So stop. Yeah,
You know what, Steven, I would also consider that an achievement. That is the achievement of all time.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think Steven would even be mad about it. Like, I think it's like, yep, I did it. I proved
no.
it. The basic ruler ban was a personal. So, that's all we have for now. That's all we have for now. So we're waiting to see. Spoiler season is officially started. So next week we will have a lot of stuff to talk about, including any other rulers that get spoiled. And I will say that next week we will have live the Ruler School channel exclusive spoilers next week during the podcast. So tune in for that. So that'll be fun. But beyond that, let's talk. None of these cards matter for the next GP because the next GP is the same exact format before Worlds. The curious element to me coming out of this event, and sure, Paul, I'm sure you're going to talk about it in your tournament report, is that this event, much more than I anticipated, was just a Caseyville run back. Like, it was not, like, in my opinion, people did not try to go deep. They did not try to, like, jump 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead. It was just like, let's just run the Caseyville meta again and see how it plays, with the notable spicy builders absent, right? Like, like Paul Martinson wasn't there, the Lindley crew wasn't there, a lot of players who already have unpaid invites weren't there. It was just, so it was like a more homogenized Caseyville meta with not as much spice. And so I was not surprised by what the top 8 was. I was pleasantly surprised that it was such a good diverse spread, but I wasn't necessarily like surprised by what made it. At least that's my thoughts. Paul, did you have any kind of initial thoughts when we were commentating or looking at the top 8?
Yeah, I was trying to see how likely it was gonna be that Leon got into the top cut in a much more significant fashion than it ended up doing so. But in that regard, the meta is really fast right now. At least that's what it feels like to me. It's like we're gonna get to turn 3 and the game's gonna be over. That's pretty fast. Most of the decks, the rulers are different, but the decks are not very different, right? With the exception of Ayu, Odin, Leon, and Derek's deck, which is kind of like this control, like lawn control sort of situation here, skewing more toward like blue and white. The meta was very much burn or something else.
Yeah, that's what I mean in the sense of, like, I mean, there was the Sphinx looping stuff, right? But it's all burn, dang it. Yeah, I think it's this piece of I'm trying to find like the ruler breakdown. I think that there's an element to your point of like the format is fast. I don't necessarily think that I would agree in the fact that the format is fast. I think that it would be that burn feels easy in this environment, right? We talk about we've had this conversation before of like be the problem, right? So it's just like burn feels like an easy choice in this environment, and so that's what more people gravitate to, which is why it's kind of being successful. That being said, I don't think that's like the end all of the meta by any means. But I also think then that the burn decks are pivoting to the idea of we'll just play Inferno as backdoor so that we don't get hosed by Lehen, right? Like if you look at MyList, like looking at the breakdown, MyList Moonstart or Almeria's Moonstart take up 7 of the 29 slots. It's nearly a fourth of the field, right? And 3 of them made it into top cut, so took up just about a third, a little bit below half of the top cut, and 2 of them made it into top 4, right? So not necessarily surprising. The second most represented there was Lehen at 4, and then it was a lot of 2s at 1s, right?
Yeah. Which, considering for Force of Will, that's a little centralized.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
because it's Force of Will, right?
I think small attendance certainly played an impact too, and I do think that there is an element of, um, because it was only 2 weeks out from the last event, people didn't want to think too hard. It was just kind of like, well, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to try to make some ridiculous off the cuff meta call. I'm just going to go in with what feels safe. And
Mhm.
so in this environment, Burns feels the safest, I think, as
Mhm.
like the easiest element, which is like, I think that's fine, but I do think it speaks to what the ban list probably needs to start addressing. As we go into Worlds format, right? We need to incorporate an idea that like makes Burn feel less comfortable while not then suddenly also boosting up hard control to the point where it just completely dominates, or suddenly boosting, aggro to where it's too fast. Like, I think that plays a lot of influence on it. So there's some pieces there. Like, I think, one of the biggest control decks that we see being played right now is Lehen, and I would argue that the reason why Lehen is so good is because it has really great answers to things that have Eternal or wide boards in the form of like Iga and Misty Statue, right? Like, Misty Statue, like things with Barrier are great against Lehen because they can't kill it, but then they're like, oh, well, I found an Iga statue, so I'll just make you banish it. Like, you know what I mean? So then, like, committing to board feels bad. Just like things with Barrier feel great against Seer decks. Like, sure. But then again, in a world of Burn, people aren't trying to play to board because they have to try to race Burn, and Burn is a little bit maybe too efficient, and so then people aren't playing to board. It creates an influence that I think if the GP had been maybe one more week had been this coming weekend, I think we probably would have seen maybe a little bit more diversity in terms of what people built, or like some creativity in trying to make a meta call. But I wasn't surprised by what came out. That being said, cool decks, cool matches. Games felt close. People had turnabouts. Kaltuma was an absolute mad lad on hitting Olympians, like constantly with IU. But it was a cool spread. Which brings me to kind of my next point as we talk about, the next format. It'll be the question of, do people want to try to shift themselves again, or just try to run it back? Because I also think Paul Martinson and I talked about this yesterday during the stream. I think we could have taken that exact same top 8 in the exact same order and run it 3 more times, and someone different could have won it every single time. Right? And I think that's indicative of overall that the meta is like still very explorable, but does have some known entities in it. So the ideas that I had personally, going into this, is in terms of what I would hit is, knowing full well what also is coming out in the next set with like Adine, is a hard ban on Inferno. The reason being that I want to take a backdoor lethal off the table for burn decks. I want burn decks to feel like, because there's a world where against a burn deck you also can't aggress them because they can just comfortably main deck a few Infernos, and then if you don't kill them fast enough, you've actually helped them win. Right? And so when Inferno is then being used as a punish for not being faster than Burn, I also think that creates a very not great board, like great environment, on top of the fact that Adine is coming into the environment. So I'm just like, I would rather just axe Inferno. I think it's just time for that card to go. Chev's Tears. Yeet that out of the meta.
Sure, you don't like free burn?
I think
What?
I did think at this point in time, it's
Wait.
not just about the free burn. It's the fact that it also can be used defensively, in ways that are just not okay. Like I have literally lost games where someone, where we fight over an Electra, and I win the fight over the Electra to save myself, but they have 2 cards in hand, so they just Chev's Tears and reanimate the Electra, and I die anyway. And I'm like, Yeah, okay. Like I won the fight and I still lost. You know what I mean? Like that. I think there's a point where
You won the battle, but you did not win the war.
Yeah, I think Chev's Tears is just it's time for that card to go. Um, and I know that people are like, oh, I know Steven Jessman specifically is like, burn is, yeah, let burn have things, let lower level burn decks have things, because I'm not saying Magic of Trust and Love needs to get banned. I think that Chev's Tears has implications outside of a burn deck that is just too efficient right now with what's being played, and it creates very weird chase sequences that feel bad, and it's just like I don't know, uninteractive in that sense. Combo ban of Iga Stone plus Lehen. For the same reason I kind of already talked about, the idea of things with barrier should be, or things with barrier / building a wide board should be good against Lehen, but Lehen having access to Iga Stone just says no. Right? And the fact that Iga Stone can suddenly be made quick cast and recycles itself also creates a board state where two Lehens fighting against each other won't ever win. No one ever wins. Because they both just get to constantly Iga Stone each other. And that's just not a good game state to create. Still think it's dumb to punish the decks and not the one that's taking the most results. I would argue that Magic of Trust and Love has been a significantly less annoying card in my games against Burn than Chev's Tears has. Like I'm sorry. Like I would rather let My List and Moonstart become like the dedicated burn deck and let them have a card that is 100 less damage even if they get to cantrip, but is significantly more telegraphed than, oh, I didn't count the number of cards in your hand correctly and you just happened to have another red card. Because Chev's Tears, in my opinion, hitting Chev's Tears also hits Inferno in general when you ban Inferno, and also makes This Means War feel bad. Because they just have so many cards anyway. So I think the argument of that it also lets them have a draw card because they're My List Moonstart is irrelevant, in my opinion. That's my disagreement there. Full ban of Little Maria. That lady is heart to heart on a stick. That's just waiting to get broken in half. And I think it's very quickly approaching the heart-to-heart talk problem. Anyway, and then it says, and then combo ban of Sherry, Scheherazade plus Pure Heartstone. My argument for this being that this is a Gates hit that forces Gates to be a risk and a true red card. Forcing Pure Heartstone to not be able to be played with Sherry means that Sherry can't be the Gates deck, which means that Gates always has some inherent risk to it, or you have to play the Pure Heartstone ramp that's exclusive to Little Red. Like, it puts Gates as being a Little Red card. Now, I argue that some people are saying you should do something else instead to Heavenly Magic. I get that. I understand that argument. I would like to see Pure Heart be shoved back to being a Little Red card, and I think this does that in a way that's fine. And then a hard ban on either Artillerist or Raging Messiah. One or the other. It could be either, and I don't care which one. But a hard ban on one of the two.
Pretty sure Raging Messiah is just going to open up problems no matter what it's in.
Yeah, This Means War could be a consistency hit without Chev's Tears. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you hit Chev's Tears, This Means War gets considerably less good. And so that's my ideas. Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that. I knew, and it's not about you, man. I just think that there is a lot of stuff. It comes from the philosophy of trying to avoid FTKs. Or like FT unwinnable board states. It's the same reason I have a problem with Little Maria. Right? In a game state, going second if your opponent doesn't have, like, if you're playing Bahamut and your opponent is stupid and you opened Raging Messiah plus Artillerist, you win the game. Full stop. Like, that's uninteractive and an FTK. And the company has said that the ban list should be used to stop FTKs. So Artillerist or Raging Messiah has to go. I think one of the two. It could be either. You pick your poison, but I think that's me. And this is just my choice. This is what I would do. But with that, that's what I have. I do have cards on a watch list. Fine. Then combo ban them. Sure. Sure. Whatever. Combo ban's fine with me either, but one or the other has to go. And then cards that are on my watch list are just there is something to be said about, if we're looking specifically at the mindset of let's look at FTKs and uninteractive gameplay, there's something to be said about maybe looking at a combo ban between Spirit of the Lamp or Spirit of Calmness and Falcon, or just Spirit of Calmness in general. The Lindley brothers kind of tapped that potential and showed us what it can do, but there is some backdoor kind of stupid stuff that you can do with it even outside of Falcon. So we don't want to become Yu-Gi-Oh! So just kind of keep that on the watch necessarily. And then, I get people saying the idea of there's something to be said about people's frustrations with Spirit of the Mirage Ruins. I don't think it needs a hit. I think that you could alleviate some of the vocalization of the concerns there by just updating the CR to make cost reductions non-mandatory. I think that alleviates some of the pressures. I don't think you need to hit Spirit of the Mirage Ruins yet, though. I also think that I don't want to do anything to mirror. And I don't think you can do anything to setting the stage until you also get rid of mirror. Right? So I think at this point in time, setting the stage and mirror are irrevocably linked together on the ban list. They're either both legal or neither of them are legal. And I don't think it's time yet. They've only had 3 months for mirror to be influential. And we saw it on stream that people played around mirror constantly. So I'm okay with that. Yeah, Matt, that's fine. They could do that. They could make a new version of Spirit that's just a little less good and then hit the actual Spirit. Sure, for sure. 100%. That's why I said watch list, right? Like, it's very much just like a thing to make the company aware of. Yeah, like the setting the stage and mirror are like permanently together. Those are one card. You cannot hit one without hitting the other. If you hit one without the other, it's a problem. Like, you have to let both of them exist at the same time, which I think is fine. Because I think they're purely defensive. And the only idea of what's being used for setting the stage not being defensive is people trying to do stupid Inferno shit. And see previously in the list where I said let's ban Inferno. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. Combo banning setting with mirror would force decks to pick a defensive card. I'd pick mirror every time. Full stop. Like, I would just pick mirror every time. But I think, but then I'm completely vulnerable to mirror, and I don't think that's necessarily the actual problem that we're looking at here. I'd rather just keep them both in the format for right now. Probably pick setting, maybe. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are my initial thoughts. Again, I think there's still a lot of space to explore, and this does feel like pruning and trimming as opposed to like full hard axes. The only full hard axe, in my opinion, I think that's just like this needs to happen. Like, yes, is those first ones that I mentioned, which were Chev's Tears Inferno and Iga plus Lehen. Those are my thoughts. I'm going to turn it over to the person who has thought about this meta, which is Paul Reisman.
Well, that was very thorough.
Yeah.
I don't have much to add other than I would be fine with a number of cards going through the reworking protocol. So getting banned and then re-released later with updated text.
Sure.
In that scenario, Chivalry's Tears needs to be gone forever. All the Magic players were right. Free spells are bad. Do not do that. It's it's not a good idea. um, just don't do it. Even in the game named after Force of Will, do not recreate Force of Will. I think banning Artillerist and then just slapping. You can play this with Odin / Order of
Oh, sure.
whatever,
Yeah, I guess I should
or
preface
whatever.
this that none of my card considerations are taking into consideration the reworking protocol. Like, I'm just not my brain is like not in that headspace of like how would
Yeah,
I rework
I
this.
would
I'm
say
just
that's
thinking
the
like base
easiest way
level.
to fix that card. You could also just combo ban it with Raging Messiah. I think that's also kind of okay. But the idea of taking old cards that were designed with New Frontiers limitations in mind and sort of reworking them so they're actually like constrained to the rulers they're meant to work with, I think is a really good thing. I don't think the problem is Artillerist in so much is that Artillerist can be used in a variety of decks. But if it were locked to Odin, I don't think it would be near. It'd
Oh,
be
sure.
sacky, but it would not be like
That's
super unfair. You're just like,
that's
oh, he's playing Odin or she's playing Odin, so I just need to be aware of the fact that they can just burn me.
in a world with in
Um,
a world with Raging
yeah.
Messiah. In a world with Raging Messiah, there's this piece where it's like Artillerist is an FTK that requires 2 cards.
Hmm.
You need Artillerist, you need Raging Messiah, and you need to be playing Bahamut because Bahamut will find you Yamada every single time. So the
Hmm.
idea of a 2-card combo that is an FTK is like maybe not.
It's outside what the stated goals of the design team are
Yeah.
as of right now.
Yeah.
I do want to see something happen to Lehen, mostly because she's just got a lot of really good tools, and the fact that she's an economy deck that just switches to playing some sort of defense or some sort of control, and can just outlast you is just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we
I'm really
saw
glad
that.
that she exists. I think she's a cool
Mhm.
ruler, but there's just a little bit of an overtunement to what she's able to do. They made her too good.
We did see. I think the core of Lehen herself is fine. I think like she's good and she's versatile. I think the biggest thing that shifts her to being too good is her longevity to be able to have an answer to every situation in the form of Ega
Hmm.
statue. Ega statue is 100% it. We watched David Smith lose all 4 of his spirits and then still be at 0 risk of dying for like 4 turns.
Yeah,
Because he kept hitting Ega statues. Like he kept hitting
and it's
Ega spirits.
untouchable.
And it's
So
untouchable.
there's no way to interact
Right.
with it.
So it's just
And
this space of like you
yeah,
stopped me from being able to hurt you, but you will never be able to hurt me. Like it's not that I'm actually going to be able to kill you. I will find that line eventually, but all of my cards recycle and prevent you from hurting me forever. So like
hmm,
to me, if you get rid of Ega statue with her, then barrier stuff starts being really good against her, and decks will be able to start applying pressure outside of decks will be able to start applying pressure after they've crippled her pressure line, right? So it's like, well, she didn't kill the game fast enough, and sure, she's exploring a bunch, but eventually she's just gonna die because this board is gonna get big enough that she's not gonna be able to answer it, right? Um, so I don't even think it's necessarily to me. I don't even think it's necessarily on the untouchable part that really bothers me. I think it's the part that she can do it at quick cast speed and that it recycles itself. Like
hmm.
that's fine. Like if you made that card untouchable, but she couldn't bypass timing and it didn't recycle itself, I'd be fine. Like I'd be fine with it. But right now, as it stands, I think to me the untouchable is the icing on the cake for all the other good parts of that spell. Right? That's the piece to me.
100%. Last comment I would have is ban Inferno with reworking protocol and bring it back as being locked to Astema.
Yeah.
Done.
Yep. That's an easy fix. Easy fix.
Yeah. We don't want to hurt Rustin too much.
Yeah, we don't want to hurt Rustin too much. Falchion plus Spirit of the Calm combo ban. Thoughts? I don't think it needs to happen quite yet, but like I said, I think we just watch Spirit of Calm for a sec. Lehen shouldn't be able to bypass timing. That's her main issue. Yeah, for sure. Again, like if she wasn't able to bypass timing and Ega statue was just on her turn, I honestly think I'd probably be fine with it, right? Because it's pretty telegraphed. It takes 2 of her will during main phase, right? So then I can just, flash in a Sphinx at the end of her turn, go to my turn, get my value out of my Sphinx, move on, because then she would like pretty hard, there would just be things that really mess with her about it. Or you just like switch to J rulers, right? At that point in time, we're just like, I'm going to put out a barrier J ruler, like an ordered Sphinx. Right? How does she answer an ordered Sphinx? Like those kinds of things, right? Or Sphinx in general. Like how would she answer like repeatable Sphinxes in general that can be quick cast at the end of your opponent's turn if she can't do quick cast Ega statues, right? That's the biggest piece. So those are my thoughts there too. Oh, for the seventh and a half. Yeah, for sure. Sure. But we still got lots more to go. I'll be curious to see exactly what, if we just see another run back in next GP or if we see some more diversity there. I'll be very curious to see what comes out on top. Will Gates make a resurgence again? Will we see another combo deck? Will Odin take the stage? Will someone finally try their hands at Seer Abdul? Because I've been saying it's actually really good this format and no one believes me. I'm the only mad lad who's willing to play that deck, which is fine. And we'll be back next week with a lot of spoilers. So until next time, this has been myself, DMO73, and I've been joined as always by Paul Reisman.
That's me.
And Mike Rance.
Really glad I contributed to the conversation at the end of this. This is really fun.
Yeah, it really helped. I really appreciated you, Mike. Class dismissed, everybody.